I'd like to call the meeting to order, special meeting tonight, May 23rd, 2023. Miss Cindy, may I have roll call?
Ms. Richards?
Present.
Mr. Toller?
Here.
Ms. Abrams?
Here.
Mr. Westmoreland?
Present.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Mr. Bush? Mr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. Simmons?
Here.
Ms. Dominguez?
Present.
This time I'd ask Mr. Tom to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, I think Mr. Jerry's going to sing the... All right, moving on to board action. Asked to consider approval of the board minutes for May 10th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Motion's made by Ms. Robin.
Second.
Second by Ms. Sandra. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Voting's open.
Miss Cindy? Yes, Miss
For
Cindy.
Ms. Richards.
I'm getting there, but yes.
Yes for Mr.
I'm
Toller.
almost there.
Yes for Robin?
I voted.
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Next, we'll consider approval of the resolution to correct language in the description of the districts. See Mr. Danny Garrett is present.
Mr. Chairman, members. First of all, I want to apologize that we messed this up. And it was a lot of, as we were making changes towards the end, getting things the way everybody needed them to do, we missed a couple things. And then in working with your registrar of voters, she is actually very good in the sense that, for example, our data had something listed as an unnamed creek. She knew it was Indian Creek, so we were able to do that. There's actually also another street that both Google Maps and our data shows as one street. Y'all's GIS system has it listed as two streets. Did not change anything in the map that y'all adopted. Just made sure that the descriptions were all correct. And since we were going to crack it open, we made sure each and every one of them. So she and I went through each one of them and went back and forth on what was the best way to describe stuff. It actually, one of the things we actually described one division in a manner that was just easier to explain. And using her personal knowledge of some of the geography, it made it work out. So that's what this resolution is. It does, like I said, it doesn't change anything in the map. It just describes the districts the same. And like, for example, one.
Start all over.
Yeah.
We could hear you.
Repeat. And some of the things like for example, with Mr. Moore's district, we made a change to put all of 129 in his district, but previously that was going to be split, and then we didn't take the language out that said it was split. Well, it can't be in it and split, and clearly the map had it that way. So the map you adopted and the shape files that we sent to the Secretary of State were correct. We just needed to get the descriptions to where they were on point. And like I said, I want to apologize for our error, but also I want to thank your registrar because she worked very hard and worked very well with us and making sure we kind of went back and forth on what's the best way to describe this since we were going to make a change anyway.
Okay, I need a motion and second, and then we can take questions.
Move to adopt the resolution to amend the resolution adopting the school board election districts for the Tangi Parish School Board and to provide in regard thereto.
Motion made by Mr. Duncan, second by, I think, Rose.
Yeah.
And now, do we have any questions for Mr. Garrett?
Just want to make sure that the one that we are adopting is the one that is in board docs. Because were there also some drafts that got done today?
Let's see. No, when I spoke to Mr. Moore, I think you had the old draft, so we made sure, and let's see.
It's up on the screen, Mr.
Yeah,
Garrett.
and I got with Cynthia earlier today, so I think we've got the correct one. Let's see.
Just want to make sure we're approving the correct draft and that Mr. Morris had an opportunity to review it.
Right, so it'll make changes to District B in which we went with the, again, with the natural intersection of Indian Creek, rather than referring to as an unnamed creek. In District C, the area, because that precinct is split, but it's almost like two little pieces, like kind of two wings. And we actually, by working with her, we actually came up with a better way to describe that. It was a little complicated to follow in the prior version. Then in District E, it was a technical change to the natural intersection of an unnamed creek, and also there was just a typo with the word "in" that was supposed to be taken out. Then in District G, that's where you'll see where we had 129A, but then we also had a portion of 129A. Well, that's can't be possible. It's that when we put the 129A, I just didn't take that language out. And then the piece where it talks about in G, where it talks about Cross Creek Street, that's the one where our data showed that that creek circle is kind of a horseshoe. So does Google Maps. But then the Parish GIS has one arm of that as Cross Creek Street. So we made that change too, just so the registrar's office would be more comfortable with it. And then she suggested the NH just following the boundary of precinct 143A rather than the little longer description. It's the same geography. We just made that change. And then in District I, there was one little piece where originally we had it going up rows, but then we moved it a little bit, and we just didn't make that change for that little bit. But this language equates to the map that you adopted. I got an email, like I said, your registrar and I were emailing it back and forth, and the last version I had, I sent to her, she signed off on it, and that's what we sent to Cynthia. So that's what y'all have today.
Okay. Districts A, D, and F have not
Didn't have any
changed.
changes. This only changes the ones where we felt like they needed a change in.
Go back to H.
Yeah, H was, and if you'll look, H really, all it did was, instead of talking about that point of, starting with that point of getting, and then moving, she just felt it made more sense just to, since we were already on the boundary, to go ahead and just follow the boundary of 143A. That made more sense to her, and since she's the one who's aligning these things and assigning voters to which district, I deferred to her because, again, she's on the ground.
But the map's exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Yes, ma'am.
All right, any further discussion?
Are we gonna get a copy of this new,
It's on board docs, we can print it out.
I mean, a copy?
I have a copy for
And
you.
then I sent them out.
Miss Cindy has a copy for you. Call for a vote?
Voting is open.
Yes, Miss Cindy?
Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving to superintendent recommendation and reports. A, consider approval to refer policy JCDA, Student Code of Conduct, and JCDB.
So move.
Motion made by Mr. Toller,
Second,
second by Mr. Duncan. We have any discussion?
call a question.
Call for a vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to B, consider approval of the substantial completion certificate for Sumner High School Gymnasium HVLS fan project by M&R Resources LLC. We have a motion.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Toller, second by Mr. Duncan.
Call a question.
Question's been called.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, that's all that's on the agenda today, so at this time, we will adjourn the meeting.